You almost threw it away. That old pocket knife sitting at the bottom of your grandfather's junk drawer, the one with the stained handle and the blade that barely opens. Someone dropped a coffee can full of knives just like it at a Goodwill last fall. A collector stopped in that same afternoon, paid $11 for the whole can, sold 3 of them for just over $2,000 within a week. Sounds crazy, right? It's true. Today we're counting down 10 old pocket knives hiding in kitchen drawers and toolboxes right now that are worth far more than anyone ever bothered to tell you. One of them might be sitting in a drawer 10 feet from where you're standing. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Texas, Ohio, Scotland, doesn't matter. I read every single one. And stick around because the knife at number 5 has the most counterintuitive rule on this entire list, and it's already cost people serious money. Here's what most people get wrong. From the 1930s through the early 1970s, American cutlery factories were making pocket knives out of real blade steel, hand-fitted bone and stag handles, and springs tight enough to last a lifetime. Then the factories closed, one by one, for good, and the same brand names got slapped on imported knives that shared nothing but the label. The tang stamp on the blade base is the only thing that tells you which knife you're actually holding. Number 10. The knife with a name nobody recognizes. Imperial and Ulster brand pocket knives. Small shield, bone or celluloid handles, a dark carbon steel blade, and no logo anyone would look twice at. That's exactly why they end up priced at $1 in a coffee can. These were working-class American manufacturers, not fancy, not flashy, built for the kind of men who used a knife every single day. The factories are gone now and the production is permanently finished. That combination, real American construction plus a closed factory, is exactly what collectors are quietly chasing right now. A retired school teacher in Indiana was clearing out her late father's workshop last winter. She found a coffee can of old knives on a shelf above the workbench and priced the whole thing at $8 at her garage sale. A man in a baseball cap bought it before noon. He recognized an early Imperial in there, shield intact, carbon blade dark with honest use. It sold through a collector forum for $180. The rest of the can covered his gas money home. Here's your checklist. First, look for the tang stamp. That's the name pressed into the base of the blade near the handle. Second, check the handle material. Genuine bone feels slightly rough and uneven. Celluloid has a faint pattern pressed into it. Third, check the shield, that small decorative piece set into the handle. Intact shields matter to collectors. A missing or cracked shield drops the price fast. Names to watch: Imperial and Ulster. Both get passed for nothing every single weekend at estate sales. Number 9 is the one that fools people because of the name on it, the Remington bullet knife. Most people see Remington and think of firearms. So do most estate sale buyers, which is why these knives show up at flea market tables priced like scrap. They're not scrap. Pre-1940 Remington pocket knives, especially the ones with the distinctive bullet-shaped shield pressed into jigged bone handles, are serious collector pieces. The two-blade patterns are the ones buyers specifically hunt for. Remington made guns built to last a generation. They made knives exactly the same way. A man in Tennessee was helping his elderly neighbor clear out a farmhouse last spring. Old tools, canning jars, hardware and coffee cans. Mixed in with a box of loose bolts was a Remington with the bullet shield, jigged bone handle, 2 blades, both still snapping open clean. He almost tossed the whole box. Instead, he posted a photo in an online knife group before he did anything else. 40 minutes later, he had 3 offers. It sold for $340. Here's your checklist. First, find the tang stamp and confirm it reads Remington. Second, look for the bullet shield on the handle. That's the distinctive bullet-shaped piece of metal set into the bone. Third, check the blade count. 2 blade patterns command a premium over single blade examples. Jigged bone handles in decent shape, not cracked or missing pieces, are what collectors want. Number 8 is the name nobody knows, and that's exactly the point. Robeson Sure-Edge. Made in Rochester, New York. If you've never heard of it, you're in the majority, and that's why this knife keeps walking out of estate sales for pocket change, while the people who know the name quietly buy every single one they find. Robeson made knives with varied handle materials, early synthetics, genuine stag, bone, and solid construction that holds up after decades in a drawer. The low name recognition is what keeps the price artificially low. That window is closing as more collectors enter the market. A couple in upstate New York were sorting through boxes from an old hardware store that had been closed for 30 years. Most of it was standard stock. Tucked in a display case in the back room was a Robeson Sure Edge with stag handles, blades sharp enough to still shave with. They priced it at $5 because the name meant nothing to them. The man who bought it knew exactly what it was. It moved for $290 online 3 days later. Here's your checklist. First, look for Robeson Sure Edge on the tang stamp. The full name is the tell. Second, check the handle material. Stag and genuine bone examples command the most. Third, check both blades if it's a two-blade pattern. Both springs should snap clean, not mushy. A mushy spring means a worn mechanism and drops the value. Number 7 looks familiar to almost everyone, and that familiarity is what makes it dangerous. Case knives. The name most people actually recognize, which is exactly why case knives get mispriced constantly, because sellers see the name and assume they know what they have. They don't. Case used a dot dating system stamped directly into the tang. The number of dots tells you exactly what year that knife was made, and pre-1970 examples in good condition are in a completely different price category from the case knives sitting on the shelf at a sporting goods store today. Same name, completely different knife. A woman in Missouri inherited a collection from her uncle's estate, maybe 40 knives in a display case, all case. She priced them at $15 each because she knew the brand and figured they were standard production. A collector offered her $200 for the whole case before she'd finished setting up. She almost took it. Instead, she looked up the dot system that night. 3 of those knives were pre-1940 examples. She sold them individually and paid for a vacation. Here's your checklist. First, find the tang stamp and count the dots. 10 dots means 1970. Each dot removed means 1 year earlier. A knife with 2 dots was made in 1978, but a knife with no dots on one side is a different system entirely, so look up the specific pattern before pricing anything. Second, check the handle material. Genuine stag and bone pre-1970 examples are worth significantly more than synthetic handles from later production. Third, check the blade for a readable etching. Early etchings fade fast, and a clear one adds real money. Number 6 is the one that looks exactly like what you can buy new at a hardware store, and that's the trap. Old-timer, Schrade Walden. You've seen these. Brown synthetic handles, simple bolsters, the words old-timer right there on the knife. You can still buy one today at a farm supply store, which is exactly why people set old Schrade Waldens back down at estate sales without a second look. Here's what they don't know. The Schrade factory in Ellenville, New York closed in 2004. Everything made inside that factory before 2004 is original American production. Everything carrying the old-timer name after that date is imported and assembled under a brand name that was sold off. The two products are not the same knife. The difference in collector value is not small. A contractor in Ohio bought a house at auction, one of those situations where you take the contents as is. Old tools, old furniture, and in a kitchen drawer, 4 old-timer knives in a rubber band. He tossed them in a box headed for Goodwill. His daughter stopped him. One of them had the USA stamped clearly on the tang and a blade still holding an edge from decades ago. It sold for $95. The other 3, later production, sold for $8 combined. Here's your checklist. First, find the tang stamp and look for the USA. That 2-letter stamp is the entire difference between American production and an import. Second, check the blade steel. American production Schrades have a slightly different look and feel to the steel, less uniformly finished than modern imports. Third, check the spring tension. Original American examples snap open and close with a firmness that later production rarely matches. Number 5 has a rule that goes against every instinct you have, and it's the one that surprises people most on this list. The Buck 110 Folding Hunter. still being made today, which is exactly what makes people walk past the early ones. You see buck 110 at a garage sale. You know you can buy one new. You put it down. But early production buck 110s have solid brass bolsters, genuine ebony handles, blade grinds, and tang stamp variations that don't exist on anything Buck makes today. The model name is identical. The knife is not. The weight tells you immediately. Early examples feel noticeably heavier and more solid in the hand than modern production. An estate sale in Arizona last summer. Garage full of hunting gear, old reels, tackle boxes. One table had knives. A buck 110 with a sticker that read $3. The buyer who grabbed it felt the weight before he read the stamp. Early tang. Brass bolsters are still sharp-edged, not rounded from tumbling. Ebony handles uncracked. He resold it within 48 hours for $220. The other buck 110 on the same table, later production, lighter, synthetic handle, sold for the $3 on the sticker. Here's your checklist. First, pick it up before you read anything. Early production feels heavier and more solid. Second, check the bolsters, solid brass, still with clean edges rather than rounded from production shortcuts. Third, find the tang stamp and look for the earliest letter codes. Buck's tang stamps changed over the decades, and the early letter codes identify the production year. Look them up before pricing anything. Quick pause. If you're getting something out of this, hit subscribe. I put out a new one of these every single week, and the next one might match something sitting in your own kitchen drawer right now. Back to the list. Number 4 is the one most people have never heard of, and the window on it is closing. Queen Cutlery. Small Pennsylvania shop. Real stag, genuine jigged bone, good carbon steel, real craftsmanship in a market that was already moving toward cheaper alternatives. And then the doors closed. That was the end of it. No more Queen Cutlery. Not being made anywhere. Not under a licensed name, not under a subsidiary. Gone. Low name recognition keeps prices lower than they should be for now. But that changes as the remaining supply gets absorbed by collectors who know exactly what they're buying. New old stock from a closed hardware store display case or a clean example in an old case. That's the find. A woman in western Pennsylvania found a display case of knives in a barn she was clearing for an estate. Most were common productions. 4 had Queen Cutlery on the tang, genuine stag handles, carbon blades with the original factory edge still on them. She priced them at $10 each because the name meant nothing to her. A collector bought all 4 before the sale opened to the public. He resold the best one, a 2-blade stag pattern, for $310. Here's your checklist. First, find the tang stamp and confirm Queen Cutlery. The full name matters. Second, check the handle material closely. Genuine stag has a natural texture that synthetics can't fully replicate. Look for natural variation in the grain and color. Third, check the blade. Carbon steel from this era develops a dark patina with use. A blade that's been polished or sharpened aggressively has lost that patina, and some collector value with it. Number 3 is so plain looking that it gets passed constantly, at ranch cleanouts, old hardware drawers, farm estate sales, usually mixed in with fence hardware and field tools, usually priced at nothing. Western States Cutlery and Western Cutlery. Simple bolsters, staglon handles, no branding that shouts value. Western knives get set back down every single weekend by people who see plain and assume worthless. They're not worthless. Pre-closure American production examples are a different category from the licensed products that came after the name was sold. An auctioneer in Colorado was running a ranch estate sale, the kind where everything goes, tools and hardware down to the last coffee can. A box lot of knives went for $7. The buyer sorted through them later that night and found a Western Cutlery with a pre-closure tang stamp and a staglon handle still in clean shape. It moved for $145 through a collector group the following week. The other knives in the box covered his $7 entrance fee with change left over. Here's your checklist. First, find the country of origin. Look for the USA on the tang. Second, check the blade for any factory etching. Western etched their blades in earlier production runs, and a readable etching adds real money. Third, check the handle for cracks running from the rivets. Cracked handles drop the value sharply on any knife, regardless of the name on the tang. Number 2 is older than almost anything else on this list, and the name means everything. Cattaraugus Cutlery Company, Little Valley, New York. The factory closed in 1963. By definition, every single Cattaraugus knife that exists is vintage. There is no new production. There is no licensed version. There is no import carrying the name. If it says Cattaraugus on the tang, it was made before 1963. Most families clearing out an old house have no idea what the name means. It means a great deal to collectors. The military contract examples, knives stamped USN or USMC, are particularly valuable. But even standard pocket knives with celluloid and bone handles from this factory are worth real attention before they go in a box to Goodwill. A family in upstate New York cleared out their great-grandmother's farmhouse after she passed at 96. The kitchen drawer had 12 knives in a rubber band. They priced the whole bundle at $5 at their estate sale. A woman browsing stopped, unfolded one, read the tang stamp, and quietly put it back in the rubber band before anyone else noticed. Paid the $5. One of the 12 had USMC stamped alongside the Cattaraugus name. That knife sold for $480. The other 11 averaged $40 each. Here's your checklist. First, read the tang stamp completely, both the brand name and any military contract marking like USN or USMC. Second, check the handle. Bone and celluloid in good shape. No cracks, no missing pieces. Third, check the blade for any military contract etching. These are sometimes faint after decades, but a readable one changes the value category entirely. Number 1 is the knife sitting in more old farmhouse drawers and veterans' toolboxes across this country than any other on this list, and almost nobody selling it knows what they have. Camillus Cutlery, Camillus, New York. Over a century supplying the United States military. USMC markings, USN contract stamps, electrician's patterns, riggers' knives, bone and synthetic handles on working patterns that were standard equipment for American servicemen across multiple wars and multiple decades. The Camillus factory closed in 2007. Original American Camillus production is finished. Permanently. And right now, at estate sales across this country, Camillus military contract knives are sitting on tables with masking tape price stickers that say $2. Because the family clearing the house sees an old beat-up knife with a name they half recognize. The people who know what they're looking at are buying every single one they find. A widow in Virginia was clearing her late husband's workshop, a veteran who had kept everything. On a pegboard above his workbench, 3 knives on a strip of leather. She priced them at $3 each because she wanted them gone. A man at the sale turned one over, read USMC alongside the Camillus stamp, set it carefully aside, and bought all 3 without negotiating. The USMC example sold for $620. The other 2, standard production Camillus, sold for $85 each. That pegboard paid her electric bill for 3 months. Here's your checklist. First, read the full tang stamp. Look specifically for USMC, USN, or US alongside the Camillus name. Military contract stamps are the tell. Second, check the blade. Military contract blades were made to spec. The steel is different from civilian production and holds a different edge. Third, don't clean it. A Camillus military knife with original patina and honest wear is worth more than the same knife scrubbed clean. The surface is the proof of what it is. You now know the 10 knives. But wait. Before you touch a single knife in that drawer tonight, there's one mistake that will turn a $600 knife into a $40 one. Most people do it automatically within the first 60 seconds, and it can't be undone. So the mistake is cleaning them. Do not clean them. Do not polish the blades. Do not oil the handles to make them look presentable. Every time you do that, you wipe off the authentication markers that tell a collector exactly what they're holding and when it was made. A knife that's been scrubbed and polished before listing can sell for 1/3 of what the same knife brings with the original patina intact. Wipe off the loose dirt. Read the tang stamp. Leave everything else alone. And check the boxes. The original packaging, a Camillus in its military issue box, a case with the original paper sleeve, doubles the realized price on its own. Most sellers never think to look in the drawer above the shelf where the knife was stored. The people buying from them already know to ask. Here's what gets me. Nobody teaches you any of this. You learn a brand name or two growing up, but Camillus, Cattaraugus, Robeson, Queen, none of that gets passed down. The people buying at estate sales every Saturday morning are counting on exactly that. They're not guessing when they offer $11 for a coffee can of old knives. They know what's in there. They're hoping you don't. That's not a crime. It's an information gap, and this video closes it. So tonight, open every drawer, find every old knife, flip each one over and read the tang stamp, that tiny name pressed into the base of the blade, before a single one goes in a donation box. Then drop a comment and tell me what you found. I read every one, and your find might help someone else watching this figure out what they're sitting on. If you want more finds like this, that video on the screen is a good next watch. I'll see you there.